I sat in the back of the room, my heart pounding as I watched Clara's piano lesson unfold. The sunlight poured through the big window, casting a warm glow over the scene. Vivien sat at the piano, her fingers dancing over the keys like they were made for her. Each note seemed to come alive, filling the room with a melody that pulled me in deeper. I had been there countless times before, but today felt different. "Can you hear that, Elowen?" Clara asked, her eyes bright with excitement. "It's like magic!" I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. I was captivated not just by the music, but by Vivien, the way her hair fell softly over her shoulders, the way she lost herself in the notes. I blinked, trying to shake off the unexpected warmth blooming in my chest. Was it admiration or something more? A sudden realization hit me. I had buried feelings long ago, tucked away like old letters I never wanted to read again. How could I feel this way about Vivien? I felt a rush of guilt wash over me as I glanced at Clara, her innocent joy contrasting sharply with my internal turmoil. "Mom, can you help me with this part?" Clara's voice broke through my thoughts, and I forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart." As I guided her fingers on the piano, I felt the tension in the air. It was thick, almost tangible. I couldn't help but look back at Vivien, who was watching us with an encouraging smile. It sent another wave of confusion through me. Was I questioning my marriage to David? It was a thought I never entertained before. Our life together felt like a safe routine, but now it seemed so mundane. I glanced at the way Vivien moved, her passion for music evident in every gesture. I couldn't remember the last time I felt that kind of spark in my own life. After the lesson, Clara ran off to play with her toys, leaving me alone with Vivien. The silence hung between us, heavy with things left unsaid. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. "Your playing was beautiful today," I said, my voice slightly shaky. "Thank you, Elowen. It means a lot coming from you," Vivien replied, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. I felt a blush creep up my cheeks, and I quickly looked away, focusing on the piano instead. "Clara really loves her lessons with you." "I love teaching her." Vivien paused, "and I love seeing how much she enjoys music. It reminds me why I do this." Her words struck a chord in me. I wanted to feel that joy again, joy that seemed to have slipped through my fingers over the years. As I left the room, the weight of my feelings pressed down on me. The admiration I had for Vivien was evolving into something far more complicated. Guilt gnawed at me, but I couldn't dismiss the connection I felt. What did it mean? Could I really allow myself to feel this way? I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. But with each passing day, the tension during Clara's lessons grew more palpable, and I found myself questioning everything about my life. "Mom, can you come help me with my puzzle?" Clara called from the living room, pulling me back to reality. "Sure, I'm coming," I replied, forcing a smile as I walked towards her. But even as I played with Clara, my thoughts lingered on Vivien. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to take the leap or step back to safety. I couldn't ignore the stirrings in my heart, but I also couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. How could I want something so beautiful, yet feel so wrong? With each lesson, I understood that my life was about to change, whether I was ready or not. As I helped Clara with her puzzle, I couldn't help but wonder, was I ready to face the truth about my feelings? And what would it mean for the life I had built with David? The questions hung in the air, unanswered, just like the melody that lingered from Vivien's piano. The night was quiet, the kind of stillness that filled the air with a sense of anticipation. Clara had finally drifted off to sleep, her soft breaths echoing in the dim light of the living room. I watched her for a moment, the gentle rise and fall of her tiny body, and I felt a wave of love wash over me. But tonight, my heart was also heavy with longing. Vivien was here, just a few rooms away, and I could feel the pull of her presence. It was almost magnetic. I had never thought much about the way we connected during Clara's lessons. I just admired her talent, her passion for music. But now, things were different. I could feel the weight of unspoken words between us, and it was almost unbearable. When I finally gathered the courage to leave the room, I found Vivien in the kitchen, her fingers wrapped around a steaming mug of tea. She looked up as I entered, and our eyes met. There was something electric in that moment, a spark that made my heart race. "Hey," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "I didn't wake you, did I?" "No, Clara is asleep," I replied, trying to sound casual. But I could hear the tremor in my own voice. "I just wanted to see you." Her smile was warm, and it lit up the dimly lit kitchen. "I'm glad you did." She took a step closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from her body. "I've been thinking about you." "Really?" I asked, my heart pounding. "What have you been thinking?" She hesitated for a moment, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. "About how much I enjoy spending time with you. How easy it is to talk to you." I nodded, my breath catching in my throat. "I feel the same way. It's different with you." Vivien took another step closer, and suddenly, the space between us felt charged with emotion. I could see her searching my face, and I knew we were both aware of the tension hanging in the air. I felt bold and scared all at once. "What if we just let go for a moment?" I suggested, my voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes widened slightly, and for a heartbeat, everything hung in the balance. Then, without another word, she closed the distance between us. Her lips met mine, and the world around us melted away. It was a kiss full of longing, of everything we had both been holding back. My heart raced, and I could feel a whirlwind of emotions surging within me. I pulled back, breathless, my mind racing. "Vivien, Shh," she said, placing a finger gently on my lips. "Just let it be." But it couldn't just be. I could feel the weight of my life with David and Clara pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. I loved my daughter more than anything, yet here I was, kissing another woman, feeling alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. The guilt washed over me like a cold wave, and I stepped back, needing space to think. "I can't," I finally managed to say, my voice trembling. "This isn't fair to Clara, or David." Vivien looked at me, her expression shifting between understanding and hurt. "I know this is complicated, Elowen, but what we have is real." "Is it?" I asked, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "Is it real, or is it just a moment of escape from the life I've built?" The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken fears. I felt torn, my heart battling with my mind. I wanted to be with Vivien, but I also wanted to fulfill my role as a mother. The kiss lingered on my lips, a reminder of a passion I had never experienced before. "I need time," I said finally, stepping away from her warmth. "I need to think about everything." "Okay," Vivien replied softly, her eyes filled with concern. "Just know that I'm here. I care about you, Elowen." I nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle in my chest. As I walked away, I knew I was standing at a crossroads. I had to decide between my responsibilities and a new, thrilling connection that threatened to change everything. As days passed, my feelings for Vivien grew stronger. Each secret meeting felt like a dance, filled with laughter and stolen glances, but it also brought with it a heavy weight of anxiety. I wanted to savor every moment with her, yet a part of me was always looking over my shoulder, worried about what I might lose. One afternoon, Clara sat at the piano, her small fingers gliding over the keys. She played a haunting melody that filled the room with a sadness I couldn't ignore. The music resonated deep within me, tugging at the strings of my heart. I closed my eyes, letting the notes wash over me. But as I listened, I felt the weight of my choices pressing down harder. "Mom, do you like it?" Clara asked, looking up at me with innocent eyes. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I replied, forcing a smile. The truth was, her music reminded me of the turmoil in my life. My heart raced as I thought about how my actions could shatter Clara's world. I imagined the look on her face if she ever found out about me and Vivien. Later that evening, I met Vivien in a quiet cafe. The atmosphere was cozy, with soft lights casting a warm glow around us. As I sat across from her, I couldn't help but admire the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about music. It was intoxicating, but the guilt gnawed at me from the inside. "Are you okay, Alawan?" Vivien asked, her voice filled with concern. "You seem distant." I have a lot on my mind," I admitted, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. "Clara's been playing so beautifully, but it makes me realize what I could lose." Vivien reached across the table, her hand brushing against mine. "You're not losing anything. You deserve to be happy, you know that, right?" "I know," I said, pulling my hand away. "But what about Clara? What if she finds out? I can't bear the thought of hurting her." Vivien's expression softened, but I could see the frustration in her eyes. "Alawan, you're not just a mother. You're a woman with desires and feelings. It's not fair to ignore that." I took a deep breath, feeling the tension in my chest. "But what if being with you means ruining everything? I love Clara more than anything." "I get that, but love can be complicated," Vivien replied softly. "You're not a bad person for wanting something for yourself." My heart raced at her words. I wanted to believe her, but the fear of the unknown held me back. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to jump, but terrified of falling. As the night wore on, I found myself lost in thought. The duality of my life was becoming unbearable. I loved my daughter, but I craved the connection I felt with Vivien. It was a battle I didn't know how to win. When I returned home, Clara was already asleep. I tiptoed into her room, watching her peaceful face as she slept. She looked so innocent and safe. "I'm so sorry, my sweet girl," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. The weight of my secrets pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. The next day, I sat in the living room, staring at the family photo on the wall. David was smiling, his arm wrapped around me, and Clara was in front, beaming. I felt a pang of guilt hit me hard. How could I betray this image of happiness? As I took a moment to collect my thoughts, I picked up my phone and stared at Vivien's number. I wanted to call her, to hear her voice, but I hesitated. What was I doing? My heart was torn, and I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. I knew I had to face my reality. I needed to confront the tangled web of my emotions and decide if I could continue living in this emotional dissonance. The secrets weighed heavily on my heart, and I couldn't ignore them for much longer. The air felt heavy as I sat across from David at the dinner table. The clinking of silverware, a harsh reminder of the silence that had settled between us. I could see the worry etched on his face, the way his brow furrowed as he tried to read my thoughts. I had been distant for weeks, lost in my own world of confusion and longing. "Alawan, is something wrong?" David asked, his voice filled with concern. "You've been so quiet lately." I looked down at my plate, pushing around the food that had lost its taste. I wanted to tell him everything, the turmoil inside me, the pull I felt toward Vivien, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I forced a smile and said, I'm just tired, that's all." David nodded, but I could see that he wasn't convinced. "If something is bothering you, you can talk to me. You know that, right?" "Of course," I replied, though the truth felt far from my lips. In that moment, I knew I was living a lie. The weight of my secret was becoming unbearable, and I felt as if it was pushing me further away from him. That night, as I lay in bed, the shadows danced across the walls, whispering my fears. I thought of Vivien, her laughter, the way her fingers glided over the piano keys like they were born to create music. My heart raced at the thought of her, the way she made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. But with every beat, guilt washed over me. How could I betray David? How could I risk everything for a fleeting moment of passion? The next morning, Clara bounced into the kitchen, her cheerful energy a stark contrast to my inner turmoil. "Mom, can we play the piano together today?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, forcing a smile. As we played, Clara's innocent joy filled the room, but a part of me felt hollow. Each note echoed my conflict, a reminder of the life I was leading and the choices I had to make. That evening, David confronted me again. "You're not yourself, Elowen. I need to know what's going on." His voice was firm, yet filled with a hint of desperation. I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "David, I hesitated, searching for the right words. I could feel the walls closing in, the weight of my secret pressing down on me. "I just need some space. I'm trying to figure things out." "Space? Or is it something else?" He pressed, a mix of frustration and concern in his eyes. I felt a rush of emotions, anger flaring up inside me. "What do you want me to say? That I'm unhappy? That I feel trapped?" The words spilled out before I could stop them. David's expression changed, hurt flickering across his face. "I would never want you to feel trapped. I love you, Elowen. Can't we work on this together?" His words cut deep, and I felt the tears prick at my eyes. "I don't know if I can," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I feel lost." In that moment, I realized I was standing at a crossroads. I could stay in this life, in this marriage, where I felt safe but unfulfilled, or I could embrace the chaos that came with pursuing my feelings for Vivien. The thought of losing Clara's sense of security weighed heavily on me, and I couldn't shake the guilt that wrapped around my heart like a vice. That night, I lay awake, my mind racing as I replayed every moment I had shared with Vivien. The laughter, the passion, the connection, it all felt like a dream I couldn't hold on to. I knew I had to make a choice, and the thought paralyzed me. As dawn broke, casting soft light into the room, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I couldn't keep living this lie. I needed to protect Clara, to ensure her happiness. With a heavy heart, I made my decision. I would end my relationship with Vivien. It was the right choice, I told myself, even if it felt like tearing a piece of my soul away. I wiped the tears from my cheeks, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The path wouldn't be easy, but for Clara's sake, I had to try. After the decision to step back from Vivien, I felt a profound emptiness settle in my heart. It was as if a part of me had been ripped away, leaving an aching void that I couldn't ignore. Each morning, I woke up to the same routine, but everything had changed. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my coffee, my mind wandering to memories of Vivien's laughter and the way her fingers danced over the piano keys. I missed her more than I thought I could, and that realization frightened me. "Mom, are you okay?" Clara's voice broke through my thoughts one afternoon. She looked at me with those big, innocent eyes, the same eyes that saw the world in a way that made everything seem bright. But now, There was a shadow forming over her, too. The warmth that once filled our home felt distant. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach my heart. "Just a little tired." But Clara wasn't convinced. "You don't smile like you used to. Is it because of the piano lessons?" I wanted to tell her everything, to share the weight of my choices, but I couldn't. "No, Clara, it's not that. I just need some time to think." As the days passed, the tension in our home grew. David noticed my distance, but he didn't know the truth behind it. He tried to engage me in conversation, to pull me back, but I felt like I was floating away. "Elowen, you seem so far away lately," he said one evening, concern etched on his face. "Is there something you want to talk about?" I looked at him, my heart heavy with unspoken words. "I'm just busy with things, David. You know how it is." I felt like a stranger in my own life, caught between the love I had for my family and the love I had lost. One afternoon, while Clara practiced her piano, I stood in the doorway, watching her. She played a cheerful piece, but all I could hear was the haunting melody that reminded me of Vivien. Each note felt like a reminder of my loss, of the joy that had slipped through my fingers. I closed my eyes, letting the music wash over me, but instead of comfort, it deepened my sorrow. "Mom, do you like it?" Clara asked, turning to me with a bright smile that momentarily lit up the darkness I felt inside. "It's beautiful, Clara," I replied, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. "You're getting better every day." "Thanks. I want to play a song for you and Dad soon. It'll be a surprise," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I nodded, trying to mirror her joy, but inside, I felt the weight of my secret pressing down harder. That night, as I lay in bed next to David, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. I thought about Vivien, how she had made me feel alive in a way I hadn't experienced in years. I remembered the sound of her laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about music. I felt guilty for wanting her, for missing her. "Are you awake?" David's voice broke through my thoughts, soft and unsure. "You've been so distant lately. I just want to know if you're okay." "I'm fine," I whispered, though my heart screamed otherwise. "Just a lot on my mind." "Whatever it is, you can talk to me," he said. "I'm here for you." I wanted to reach out, to share my struggles, but the words tangled in my throat. "Thank you, David. I appreciate it. I just need some time." As the days turned into weeks, the absence of Vivien became a constant ache. I found myself grappling with my identity, wondering if the love I felt for her was a fleeting infatuation or something deeper. I missed her presence in a way that was consuming me. In the quiet moments, I would sit alone, staring at the empty spaces where Vivien once filled my thoughts. I had chosen to walk away for Clara's sake, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had lost a part of myself in the process. I was left with a question that haunted me. Who was I without Vivien? And so, I continued to navigate the aftermath of my decision, yearning for clarity, but feeling lost in the shadows of my own heart. The days turned into weeks, and the emptiness inside me felt like a hollow echo. I focused on Clara, trying to be the mother she needed, but every laugh we shared was tinged with sadness. I missed Vivien more than I thought possible. The music that once filled our home had faded, replaced by a quiet tension that I hoped Clara did not notice. One afternoon, while Clara practiced her piano, I found myself staring out the window, lost in thought. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow that reminded me of the light in Vivien's eyes when she played. I shook my head, trying to push those memories away. "Mom, can you help me with this part?" Clara asked, pulling me back to reality. "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, forcing a smile as I joined her by the piano. I watched her fingers dance over the keys, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of joy. But as she played, the haunting notes echoed the turmoil within me. Each note felt like a reminder of what I had lost. As weeks passed, I began to find some routine. I took Clara to her lessons, helped with her homework, and even tried to reconnect with David. But each night, as I lay in bed, I felt the void grow larger. I missed the spark, the passion I had felt with Vivien. Then, one rainy afternoon, everything changed. I was in the grocery store, pushing my cart down the crowded aisle, when I spotted her. Vivien stood at the end of the aisle, her hair damp from the rain, and for a moment, time stopped. I felt my heart race, and my breath hitched in my throat. "Alawan?" she called, a smile breaking across her face. "Vivien," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice trembled. It's been a while." "Too long," she replied, stepping closer. The warmth of her presence sent shivers down my spine, and I remembered the way she made me feel alive. "How have you been?" I hesitated, unsure of how to answer. "I've been okay, just busy with Clara. And life, you know." Vivien nodded, her eyes searching mine. "I've thought about you. A lot. I miss you." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I felt my heart flutter, but guilt quickly followed. "I miss you too," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't go back to that." "Why not?" she asked, her brow furrowing in concern. "Alawan, I know things are complicated, but what we had was real." I looked away, my heart racing. It was real, but I have Clara to think about. I can't just throw everything away. Vivien stepped closer, her expression softening. "But what about you? What do you want? You deserve to be happy too." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I had spent so much time focusing on everyone else's happiness that I had neglected my own desires. "I don't know what I want anymore," I confessed, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I feel so lost." "Maybe it's time to find yourself again," she said gently. "You don't have to choose one or the other. You can find a way to honor both." I took a deep breath, considering her words. Could I really find a way to embrace both parts of my life? The stability with David and the passion I felt with Vivien? "I need time to think," I said finally, my voice steadying. "But seeing you like this, it brings back everything I've been trying to forget." "I'll be here," Vivien said softly, her gaze unwavering. "Whenever you're ready." As we parted ways, I felt a mix of hope and fear swirling inside me. Maybe it was time to stop running from my feelings. I had spent too long living for others, and now it was time to consider what truly made me happy. As I returned home, the weight on my heart felt lighter, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of possibility. Share this story if you believe that love can conquer even the most challenging obstacles. Leave a comment about a time when an unexpected encounter changed your life, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories like this one.